Welcome back and thanks for joining us. My guest is Greg Young. He's the General Manager for Civilian at Unison. Greg, good to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Procurement. It is something that is universal to every federal agency. It is something the government spends close to $1 trillion on every year, number rising. It is a big, challenging hairball, if you will, for government, and it's under a lot of stress and change right now. Tell us what you see in the scene.
Yeah, there are a lot of changes in federal procurement. So, as you mentioned that, seeing a number of folks retire, a number of executive orders, in this administration, thinking about, ways to drive consolidation, which is bringing change. So there are executive orders to, use commercial technology to try to help the federal procurement space. There are executive orders on consolidation, where we're seeing consolidation both inside of an agency, so at a bureau or at an institute going to headquarters, as well as common goods going to GSA. So that consolidation is a big change for federal procurement. All of that then, leading to less folks, less contracting officers, working the actual mission buys that you need to get done. So there's less folks in the contracting space. Also executive orders of where you can use technology, a big push towards where lots of folks are talking about with AI and other technology in terms of where you can use technology to take out routine tasks, and get more done with less. So those contracting staff and 1102s can really work with the mission program offices and their partners and be the business advisors that they really are in the federal government.
So would you say this is all maybe kind of forcing a rethinking of modernizing procurement and also the systems that support it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a little bit of traction. I would say that the demographics in federal procurement were shifting a little bit before this administration, and it's just accelerated a lot, obviously right now, where you're thinking about where you can bring technology into the federal acquisition business process and take the place of those routine tasks that we talked about and use technology to aid the 1102s and the workforce. So you're certainly seeing tools like robotic process automation, thinking about places in the federal acquisition workflow of where you can take on those routine tasks like bulk mods. So if you have to change a core on 100 different contracts, or you need to change a term and condition in 1,000 different contracts, using a bulk modification to do that one time and it goes out 1,000 times, or bulk closeout and using that RPA technology to do that.
And that's a good point, because many of those routine tasks, the fact that they're routine doesn't mean they're not crucial.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like putting a file back in alphabetical order, but a bulk modification really matters because it involves thousands of vendors, and it may involve a statute or something like that.
It's a term of a contract, and so it's real important, right, to get that out to the vendor community. So that's absolutely right. But if there's ways to do that in an automated way so that the contracting officer can spend their time on higher value work in terms of thinking about being that business partner to the mission program office, that just freed up more time for them to focus on some of that work.
So in other words, we have routine task time and we have strategic time.
Yeah.
It all adds up, but if you reduce one, then your PALT goes down.
Yeah, right. So that's having more time to focus on those strategic tasks and finding ways, when you're reducing those routine tasks to speed up the PALT for sure. So finding ways to speed up that acquisition business process.
Because you're on the civilian side for Unison. On the military side of the government, you always hear, acquisition and at the speed of need and the speed of whatever's needed. There's a million efforts going on that are quite widely public on the DoD side to speed up technology acquisition and capability acquisition. But what do you see on the civilian side?
Yeah, well, so you still want to add efficiency into the process. So you still want to find ways for the contracting teams to really be working with the mission program offices to buy what they need and get that done, in an efficient way. So, in addition to the RPA that I was talking about, is finding other ways for technology to support that. Hear a lot about AI these days, and where AI can be part of that process. So using that as well to do automated document generation. So you think about the process of where a statement of work can get done in minutes as opposed to days, and you can collaborate with the program office, on that statement of work. And get that drafted. You still probably want a human in the loop, in that process of that human reviewing that. But see a lot of those types of technology and advancements, as part of the federal civilian acquisition.
And if you are using AI to do something like generate a statement of work and so forth, the training of that, the data to train that, the documents to train it, you probably already have in your possession.
It's real important though, right? Because it's got to be trusted, right? So the agencies, wants to make sure that the AI and that's generating that is sort of a trusted source. But that's where we generally will work with the agencies, one to train that, but then also having federal acquisition subject matter experts that really work with the AI, have it trained in ways that supports the acquisition business process, and then has data that either comes from previous statements of work across SAM and things that you can pull in there. Virtual acquisition office, lots of sources, but really having that data is important so that you have trusted sources, of generating those statements of work.
And there are some things that are more open-ended, which maybe can also benefit from some of this artificial intelligence. One of the most important ones is research, market research, and vendor discovery. And this is kind of especially poignant now because the administration has come down so hard on the 10 biggies that everybody uses for everything. It's kind of like the hardware store. And so you might need fresh sources or more specific sources that are more mission related as opposed to these general big box vendors, you might call them.
Yeah.
So talk about how that's a strategic end, not a routine end of things, but that can be maybe enhanced also.
Yeah, there's a couple of parts of the sourcing process and the vendor identification that we're seeing folks start using technology more in. There's the strategic aspects of it, but on the technology side, thinking about tools where robotic process automation can also support that market research. So we have a market research solution that will go out and go to 30 different sources of vendor databases to do that sourcing and sort of automate some of that sourcing to bring back potential bits of sourcing and potential vendors for the government to consider. There's also a tool that's not it's not made for every procurement, but reverse auctions is another tool that we're seeing agencies use at the right time.
That's kind of came a few years ago and went out. Now it's back.
Yeah, well, it's part of the current FAR. So it's in the current FAR. With the revolutionary FAR overhaul, which is happening now.
We haven't seen the output quite yet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Coming. We expect it either to still be included, or what they'll talk about use innovative technologies or innovative ways of doing things in the acquisition process. And we've seen that reverse auctions can help, on the sourcing side, because you can have the agents that I was talking about, robotic process automation, help on the sourcing. You can have humans help on that sourcing. But we've seen where reverse auctions for the right purchases, commodities, even if there are GWACs and you're looking to buy IT, seeing where that negotiations and reverse auctions can still bring 10% cost savings. So you've got cost savings.
Reverse auction is pushing the price down to the government. Can AI also maybe help vendors find ways to cut costs so that they can reduce the price and everybody doesn't go broke?
Yeah, well, certainly that's on the vendor side to figure that out, but I'm sure they are, they are doing that. And, it's where I think there are vendors when they think about, they have their maybe schedule price that's with GSA, but they even find that bit of competition gives them the opportunity to maybe put a best price forward in that reverse auction and win something that they wouldn't have otherwise. And then, certainly, AI on their side can help them bring their pricing down too, I'm sure.
Right, but that's a good forcing function, the reverse auction, for a vendor to examine its own costs.
Yeah, sure. So, when they are trying to get to their lowest cost, they would examine their costs. That's absolutely right.
And, we're now in the summertime, but pretty soon it's going to be the end of the fiscal year, which, no matter what, there's always a rush. And there are shopping for 1102s that have available capacity, and some of the GWAC owners stay open 24 hours.
Yeah.
What about the year-end rush? How can that be maybe mitigated with some of these tools?
Yeah, well, so, we talked a little bit about what was happening in the federal procurement space, and one thing I didn't bring up, at the start, but something to note here is that, we're seeing that, there's a lot of budgets that are still left. So there's departments that have just say a $10 billion budget, and they've only spent $3 billion so far here in fiscal year 25. Every other year, we've seen those departments spend, that money. There's mission needs, and they're finding ways to get to those mission needs. We're not necessarily sure that, every agency is going to spend and be able to spend every one of those dollars this year, but we'll see. But even without that, even if those agencies aren't spending every dollar, there's still an awful lot of mission buying that they need to do, and still a lot that needs to happen between here and the end of the fiscal year. So that's really where technology can help you do that. So automated aspects of sourcing, the reverse auctions like we were talking about can bring the procurement time down from weeks, sometimes to days, if you need to do that at the end of the year. So really finding ways to do that here at the end of the year.
And a theme of the administration in many of its executive orders in a variety of domains has been to kind of pare things down to what is statutorily required, as opposed to what has grown up around the statutes, the thicket. And that's what we might be seeing in the FAR overhaul. I think that's what people are expecting. So the question then is, what are the risks here that, yes, you can get maybe around some of the regulatory thicket that's built up, but you don't want to cross a statutory line with automation and AI?
Yeah, for sure, which is where, I think that's where a human, is absolutely still, part of the process, and why contracting officers are so important. To have an eye on that, and they really are, the business partner of the Mission Program Office. They're also the signee for a government agency, so they're the ones that really, need to have that human eye on things still.
And how receptive do you find agencies to some of these ideas in your daily encounters, looking across the civilian to reverse auctions to market research driven by AI?
They're really open to it, right? So I think they are seeing, where it can help them. It can help them do more with less, and really still get all of the buying that they need to get done for their agency with potentially a smaller workforce. So really looking to where AI can help them, or other types of technology.
And just a final thought, it struck me that in, say, AI-driven market research, you might turn up people that have not done business with the government before, and in some cases deliberately so. So maybe speeding up some of the routine things can make the federal market seem more desirable to companies that don't want to get caught up in red tape for 18 months before their first order.
Yeah, that's a good point, as well as potentially AI that helps them get all of their registrations done, right? If you need to, register in SAM and do that process, that is what has held them back in the past. Tools that really help them do that quickly, but that's a real good point.
And you can get that done without a $1,000 an hour consultant.
Right. That would keep their costs down too. So that's a good point.
All right, some great insight from Greg Young, the General Manager for Civilian at Unison. You're watching the video series Forward Under Pressure, Practical Paths to Modern Federal Acquisition. I'm Tom Temin. For more on this discussion, please visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Unison.